What are the principal parts of mold? Although the structure of plastic molds may vary due to the variety and performance of plastics, the shape and structure of plastic products, and the type of injection machine, the basic structure is the same. The principal parts of a mold can be divided by function. It is mainly composed of a pouring system, temperature adjustment system, forming parts system, exhaust system, guiding system, ejection system, etc. Among them, the pouring system and injection molding parts are the parts that are in direct contact with the plastic material and change with the plastic and the product. They are the most complex and the most changing parts in the plastic injection mold, requiring the highest processing, finish and precision. Pouring system. It refers to the part of the flow path before the plastic enters the cavity from the nozzle, including the main flow path, cold material cavity, runner, and gate. Forming parts system refers to the combination of various parts that make up the shape of the prod mold duct, including moving molds, fixed molds, cavities, concave molds, cores, punch molds, and forming rods. The core forms the inner surface of the product, and the cavity, die, forms the outer surface shape of the product. After the mold is closed, the core and the cavity form the cavity of the mold, according to the process and manufacturing requirements. Sometimes the core and die are composed of several pieces, and sometimes they are made into a whole, and inserts are only used in easily damaged and difficult to temperature adjustment system to meet the mold temperature requirements of the injection molding manufacturing process. A temperature adjustment system is required to adjust the mold temperature. For injection molds for thermoplastics, the cooling system is mainly designed to cool the mold. The mold can also be heated. The common method of mold cooling is to set up a cooling water channel in the mold, and use the circulating cooling water to take away the heat of the mold. In addition to using cooling water to pass hot water or hot oil, electric heating elements can also be installed in and around the injection mold. Exhaust system. It is set up to discharge the air in the cavity and the gas generated by the melting of plastic to the outside of the mold during the injection molding technology process. When the exhaust is not smooth, the product surface will form gas marks, burns, and other defects. The exhaust of the plastic injection mold. The air system is usually a groove-shaped air outlet opened in the mold to discharge the original cavity air and the gas brought in by the melt. When the molten material is injected into the cavity, the air originally stored in the cavity and the gas brought in by the melt must be discharged out of the mold through the exhaust port at the end of the material flow. Otherwise, the product will have pores and poor connection. The mold is not filled, and even the accumulated air will burn the product due to the high temperatures generated by compression. In general, the vent hole can be set either at the end of the molten material flow in the cavity or on the parting surface of the mold. The latter is to open a shallow groove with a depth of 0.030.2 mm and a width of 1.56 mm on one side of the die. During injection, there will not be a lot of molten raw material seeping out of the vent hole, because the molten material will cool and solidify there and block the channel. The opening position of the exhaust port must not face the operator to prevent the molten material from accidentally spraying out and hurting people. Guide system. It is established to ensure that the movable mold and the fixed mold can be accurately centered when the mold is closed, and guide parts must be set in the mold holes. In the injection mold, 4 sets of guide posts and guide sleeves are usually used to form the guide parts, and sometimes it is necessary to set mutually matching inner and outer tapered surfaces on the movable mold and the fixed mold to assist in positioning. Ejection system. It generally includes a thimble, front and rear thimble plates, thimble guide rods, thimble return springs, thimble plate locking screws, and other parts. After the product is molded and cooled in the mold, the front and rear molds of the mold are separated and opened, and the plastic product and its condensed material in the runner are pushed out or pulled out of the mold cavity and runner positioned by the ejector pin, which is pushed by the ejector pin of the injection molding machine to carry out the next injection molding work cycle. The principal parts of a mold can be divided by structure according to the structure. The plastic mold is generally composed of several parts such as mold base, mold core, auxiliary parts, auxiliary system, and auxiliary setting. Mold base generally, we do not need to design, and can be ordered directly from the standard mold base manufacturer, which greatly saves the time required to design the mold components. So it is called the plastic mold standard mold base. It constitutes the most basic frame part of the plastic mold. Mold core. The core part of the mold is the core part of the plastic mold, and it is the most important part of the mold. The forming part of the plastic product is inside the mold core, and most of the processing time is also spent on the mold core. However, compared with some relatively simple molds, it does not have a core part, and the product is formed directly on the template. Most of the early plastic injection molds were like this, relatively backward. Auxiliary parts. Commonly used auxiliary parts for plastic molds include positioning locating rings, sprue bushings, thimbles, grab pins, support columns, ejector plate guide posts, guide sleeves, garbage nails, etc. Some of them are standard parts, and you can directly order the mold base when ordered together. Some of them need to be designed by themselves. Auxiliary system. There are 4 auxiliary systems for plastic injection molds: pouring system, ejection system, cooling system, and exhaust system. Sometimes, because the molten plastic materials used need to be heated at a high temperature, some molds also have a heating system. Auxiliary settings. Auxiliary settings of the plastic mold include ring holes, co-holes, top stick holes, and so on. Conclusion. The plastic mold consists of a moving mold and a stationary mold. The moving mold is installed on the movable template of the plastic injection molding machines, and the stationary mold is installed on the fixed template of the injection molding machine. During injection molding process, the movable mold and the mold are close to form the gating system and the cavity, and the movable injection mold and the stationary mold are separated to take out the plastic product when the mold halves are opened.